Wasabi guys, welcome back to another Top 10 Commander video. This time I want to talk about the 10 best commanders that are just plain hard to kill. They're hard to get rid of. You have to waste removal on them, you have to waste responses. Some of these have hexproof or protection, indestructible, or they have some built-in ability, run away, come back to the field later on. Before I get into the video, first I would like to remind you that most of you who are watching are not subscribed to the channel. I really do appreciate all of the subscribers here, old and new. You guys are making this a blast. So number 10 here, we have Noren the Wary. Very difficult to deal with. The only reason why he's number 10 is because most people probably wouldn't really care about removing Noren himself, but instead the cards that you're using to take advantage of Noren. We have enchantments, artifacts, we have other permanents that make it very easy to abuse, several ETBs, and that's kind of the whole point of a Noren the Wary commander deck. You want Noren to leave and re-enter the battlefield pretty much every turn. So his ability, his trigger makes that easy to accomplish. But just in case if you ever did want to get rid of him, that is very difficult and would require something that stays on the field, gives all creatures -1/-1. If you have that going for you, then Noren shouldn't be a problem. Number 9 is something I don't like to do all the time, where a certain spot on the list is sharing cards, but I think this is appropriate. Any of the Theros gods. I don't think there's really any one of them that stand out as being harder than the others, because they're indestructible enchantments at the very least. That's the strength of these gods. If you don't meet the devotion, the only way you can really remove it is some kind of enchantment exiling removal. And that's really why they make such strong commander options. It's because they offer resiliency. They may not be the most powerful in their other abilities, but they're at least going to stay on the field more often than many other commanders. And then number 8, we have Anamar, Soul of Elements. Not quite the threat that it used to be in the commander format. This, of course, being one of the first precon commanders. Protection from white and black, though, believe it or not, that makes it even harder to deal with than just simply indestructible, because a lot of targeting removal is what you look for to deal with commanders. The protection from white and black also means that Anamar is more likely to deal commander damage than some of these other commanders. When you can take 2 out of 5 colors and say, you know what, if that's all you have to offer me, I can pretty much just dance past your creatures and hit you for that 21 commander damage. These decks can be very aggressive, and they're just intended to cheat out some massive creatures, which will leave Anamar with a ton of +1/+1 counters. And then number 7, we have Koma, Cosmos Serpent. This is a commander option that cannot be countered, which means that the threat is likely going to hit the board uncontested. So each upkeep, not just yours but your opponent's as well, you're going to be getting a 3/3 Serpent creature token. In addition to not being countered, Koma has an ability where you get to sacrifice a serpent to give it indestructible until end of turn. So no matter what happens to the rest of your creatures, and unless you're facing exiling removal, sacrifice removal, Koma's pretty much going to be exempt from most board wipes. A relatively newer commander compared to the rest here, but with no doubt, any commander that has an activated ability that can pretty much shield itself, it's going to be a pain to deal with. And then number 6, we have Ulmog the Infinite Gyre. We could also include some of the other Eldrazi, but I like Ulmog here for 2 reasons. You have the indestructible that you don't have with Kozilek, that you don't have with the Emrakul, and you have that combined with the Annihilator trigger. These older Eldrazi make it so much more difficult to deal with them, because once they get the Annihilator going, you're just going to keep losing resources. You're going to keep losing resources until you eventually just lose the game. And it's very likely that you just lose to commander damage because of these two. But Ulmog, the combination of Indestructible and Annihilator, Eldrazi aren't practical commander options, but if you are able to get to them pretty quick, they do just straight up win the game. And then number 5, we have Nazal, Primal Tide. To me, I think Nazal is even harder to deal with than Koma, even though I think Koma might be a more interesting commander option. You have the combination of a card draw engine, where your opponent's cast non-creature spells, you get to draw off of that, so it can't be countered, which is beautiful. And just in case, if it's facing any kind of targeting removal, you discard 3 cards to have it exile and then come back at the beginning of the next end step. It's quite annoying if you ever wanted to play this commander. Pretty much all you do is you play Nazal, and then you just keep drawing cards until you have a way to win off a card draw. And then number 4, we have Narset, Enlightened Master. One of the hardest commanders to ever deal with. If you decide to make this commander deck even more powerful, chances are you will have by turn 3 or 4 a way to attack each opponent, get yourself an additional turn, get yourself an additional combat, because that's what your deck is filled with. The hexproof means that you have a short period of time to deal with Narset. Pretty much have to counter her if she's left alone that player has a very good chance of just winning the game once it's time to attack. We don't see this too often. I mean, there are other commander options that have hexproof, that have some kind of shroud or protection, but just straight up making it so that you can target your creature, your opponents can't, that suddenly becomes the main focus of the game. And then number 3, we have Progenitus. Speaking of having some kind of built-in protection, how about protection from everything? I understand that Progenitus isn't quite the practical commander, but there was a time where Progenitus was one of the only good 5-color commander options if you just wanted to play something like Super Friends. I still think you get it out there, you should probably try to win through commander damage, seeing as your commander is really just double strike and some +1/+1 away from dealing it right then and there. Protection from everything pretty much means that it can swing uncontested. If you're capable of getting to 10 mana pretty quickly, Progenitus is certainly a powerful commander. And then number 2, we have Lysa, Shroud of Dusk. What's more powerful in my opinion than having built-in protection? Not even needing it. Not even really needing to pay the commander tax, and having your commander be a constant threat throughout the game. After seeing her at number 2, you probably know what number 1 is, but real quick, any kind of commander deck based around life gain already knows that paying 2 life any amount of times is pretty easy, especially if that's in replacement of the commander tax. So for the rest of the game, you're just paying 5 mana for your commander each time you have to recast her. She has lifelink, and she has 5 power with flying, meaning that shouldn't ever really matter. So you mean to tell me that in a format where we start out with 40 life, I just have to pay 2 life each time? I mean, there's no way that would ever be good, right? So number 1 is Derevi, Imperial Tactician. It gets the number 1 spot for one reason. The ability pretty much gives it flash, and it's a constant cost of 4. There are stacks options with Derevi. I mean, if you want to make this commander nasty, the rest of the deck is really how you do it. I mean, Derevi isn't inherently nasty, but the way that you can build around Derevi is. Just ask anyone who's a fan of Stasis, ask anyone who's a fan of Winter Orb. Derevi can be one of the most painful commanders to ever have to deal with, because no matter what, you can always just replay it for that 4 mana. So anyway guys, let me know what you think about these 10 hard to kill commanders, difficult to deal with. Let me know your favorite commanders that are resilient, that make it difficult for your opponents to finish them off. Void here signing off. I will see you all next time.